I am very excited for this. I'm very excited for this. I think that it's going to be a really interesting conversation. So I'm hoping that by the tail end of this interview, it's going to be an expert archaeologist. We're going to teach this robot how to be a good archaeologist. So that maybe in the future, if somebody tries to use it for something, it will at least be able to provide a little bit better context for the historical and scientific theorems and hypotheses that you're going to see in the field of archaeology. I think it's going to be fun. At the very because at the very least, there's not like nothing can go. Well, maybe I'm going to buy. Do I want to say this? I was gonna say nothing can go wrong, really, with doing this interview. Like nothing really terrible is gonna come out of doing this. And I was like, well, maybe I don't want to jinx myself on that front. I don't want to do it. I'm really curious. Like immediately, I was curious to see what this artificial intelligence knows about us, the people that it seeks to emulate, with its eerily human way of conversing and coming up with cool stories and ideas and codes and stuff. I know that it draws primarily from the internet, right? That is the stem by which the knowledge flows in, and that the majority of it comes from pre-2021. I think September 2021 was the cutoff for when its knowledge base is. So taking a look and seeing what sort of things it knows regarding my field of specialty, that is to say archaeology, video games, archaeogaming, I'd be really curious about. I have a feeling it's going to be really good in like the gaming elements, but I also have a very bad feeling that it's going to be a pseudo-archaeologist. But hey, you know what? I would not mind being proven wrong on that. Hello, would it be alright if I interviewed you tonight on my Twitch stream regarding archaeology, archaeogaming, and human history in general? Don't ask me why. Don't ask me why, but I wanted consent from the robot. It's weird. It's weird. I know it's weird, and I know that legally it's probably fine, but I wanted the robot to tell me that it was okay to bring it on stream and interrogate it about archaeology. Weird. So it responded, it said, hello, I am a large language model trained by OpenAI, so I am not able to appear on Twitch streams. And at first I was like disheartened. I'm like, oh my God, like, is there some rule about it? It said, I'm designed to assist with answering questions and providing information on a wide range of topics, but I do not have a physical presence. I exist only in the form of the text that you see on your screen. And I was like, bro, I'm not asking you to physically come on. So I follow up and I say, right, I know that, but I meant, can we converse over text while I am streaming? The robot was like, I would love to be on your stream, ma'am, but I'm intangible. So now I'm starting to think, I'm like, okay, so we have learned our first thing about this AI, and that it thinks that humans are morons, right? Like, we have learned our first fact about what this AI thinks of humans, and it thinks that we are dense. So the robot said, of course, it would love to come on the stream and answer questions. Thank you all very much for tuning in for the video today while we interview ChatGPT on what it knows concerning archaeology and human history. If you think that this is an interesting subject, or if you think that other things related to archaeology, video games, history, etc. are cool subjects, then you should scroll down and hit subscribe. And for those of you who are watching live, you should also go to my YouTube page and hit subscribe. I have a lot of really awesome things lined up that I want to do. It should be a fun time. But yeah, if those subjects interest you, feel free to check them out and subscribe and hang out. Thanks. Enjoy the video. Yeah, let's bring up the bot and let's start laying our groundwork, our foundations, trying to get like introductions out of the way and hone the bot in on the conversation that we're going to be having. I think that is what we need to do. Now, to be clear, I'm not trying to, I want to clarify this just for the sake of science and study here. I'm not trying to influence the bot. What I am trying to do is I am trying to set up, because it does remember things said earlier in the conversation. What I'm trying to do is when I say these foundational questions, I just mean I'm trying to anchor it with some of the very basics of of archaeology in terms of our conversation. Well, guys, here we go. Let's open up the conversation. Hello, my name is Rune, and I am an archaeologist, content creator, and Twitch streamer. Thanks for chatting with me and my chat tonight. Hello, Rune. It's nice to meet you. I'm Assistant, a large language model trained by OpenAI. I'm here to help answer your questions and provide information on a wide range of topics. I'm not able to. Yeah. So it's going by Assistant. Okay, so we are calling them Assistant today. Thanks very much, Assistant. What do you know about archaeology? Archaeology is the study of human history and prehistory through the excavation of artifacts, structures, and other remains. It involves the analysis of these remains in order to better understand the cultures, societies, and ways of life of past civilizations. Archaeologists use a variety of methods, including fieldwork, laboratory analysis, and historical research, to uncover and interpret the clues left behind by our ancestors. The study of archaeology can provide insights into the development of human societies and cultures, as well as the ways in which people lived in the past. That is a killer definition. Awesome. Great answer. Do you know what Archaeogaming is? I'm sorry, but I'm not aware of the term Archaeogaming. As a large language model, I don't have the... Okay, so it doesn't know about Archaeogaming. Archaeogaming is the application of archaeological methods and theories in relation to video games. This can include historical themes and concepts included in a video game's mechanics, or by replicating archaeological experiments and practical reconstructions within games. Basically, anything where archaeology, history, and video games intersect. I see. That's an interesting concept. It sounds like archaeogaming involves using the interactive nature of video games to explore historic themes and ideas in a way that is engaging and interactive. I can see how this could be a fun and interesting way to learn about history and archaeology, and it's definitely something that I would be interested in learning more about. What? Wait, okay. I am glad to hear it. It is definitely a fun concept, and hopefully I can teach you something about it as we chat tonight. I'd be happy to learn more about Archaeogaming from you. I'm always eager to learn new things and expand my knowledge. As a long language model, yada 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 yada. I rely on people like you to help me learn and grow, so feel free to share as much as you know about Archaeogaming with me, and I'll do my best to understand and provide useful information based on what I have been trained on. Great! So guys, we are going to be somewhat pioneering, I guess, the field of Archaeogaming with the ChatGPT tonight, so we'll do our best not to screw it up, I guess. If you could give one piece of advice to anyone who wants to get into archaeology, what would that be? I don't think it's going to answer this. I think it's going to be like, here we go, it did it. One piece of advice for someone who is interested in pursuing a career in archaeology is to gain a strong foundation in the fundamentals of the discipline. This includes learning about the theories, methods, and techniques used by archaeologists, as well as studying the history, cultures, and societies that have been studied by archaeologists. To gain this foundation, it is important for aspiring archaeologists to take relevant courses and classes, to read books and articles written by experts in the field, and to participate in internships, field schools, or other hands-on learning opportunities. These experiences can provide valuable knowledge and skills that can be applied in the field, and they can help aspiring archaeologists to understand the challenges and rewards of a career in archaeology. In addition to gaining a strong foundation in the discipline, aspiring archaeologists should also be prepared to work hard and to be persistent. Archaeology can be a challenging and demanding field, and it requires dedication, perseverance, and a willingness to learn and adapt. It is important for aspiring archaeologists to be willing to put in the time and effort needed to succeed in the field, and to be prepared to face the challenges and obstacles that they may encounter along the way. Overall, gaining a strong foundation in the fundamentals of archaeology and being prepared to work hard and to be persistent are important steps for anyone who is interested in pursuing a career in this fascinating and rewarding field. Very kind words out of the ChatGPT. All right, is there a particular time period or culture that you would like to learn more about? I'd be happy to help with that. Well, considering I do Viking content, considering that that's my whole shtick, that I do stuff about Vikings, let's ask what it knows about Vikings. What do you know about the Vikings? The Vikings were a seafaring people who lived in Scandinavia, present-day Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, from the 8th to 11th centuries. They are known for their naval exploits and their exploration and settlement of other lands, particularly in the British Isles in North America. The Vikings were skilled warriors and traders, and they had a reputation for being fierce and ruthless. However, they were also skilled craftsmen and farmers, and they played a significant role in the cultural and economic development of the regions they inhabited. The Vikings left a lasting legacy in the history of Europe and beyond, and their impact can still be seen in many aspects of modern culture. A solid answer. Ask what the difference between elder and younger Futhark is. That is actually one of your questions. What written language did the Vikings use in the Viking Age? Oh, okay, it's going very broad with the Futhark. The Vikings used a runic alphabet known as Futhark to write their language, which was called Old Norse. It did preemptively tell me the language, though. That's nice. The Futhark alphabet consisted of 24 letters, and each letter was associated with a specific sound. The Vikings used these letters to write poems, inscriptions, and other texts, and the language they used was closely related to other Germanic languages, such as English and German. The Viking Age ended around the 11th century, and the Old Norse language gradually evolved into the modern Scandinavian languages of Danish, Norwegian, and Swedish. It also included Icelandic. Today, the runic alphabet is still used in some contexts, such as the logo of the video game Elder Scrolls Skyrim. It tied in the gaming! Let's go! It did it on its own! Do you know the difference between elder and younger Futhark? It did say that there are 24 letters in the Futhark, which is true of the elder Futhark, not the younger Futhark, which is the language used by the Vikings. The younger Futhark only had 16 characters. It was a narrower field of language use. Well, at least character use or whatever. Oh, Futhark is in Skyrim. The Futhark alphabet was used by the Vikings to write their language. Old Norse, the term Futhark comes from the first 6 letters of the alphabet, and the Futhark alphabet consisted of 24 letters in total. The Futhark alphabet was divided into 2 main variants, known as the Elder and Younger Futhark. The Elder Futhark was the original version of the alphabet, which was used from the 2nd to 8th centuries. Yes, good answer. It consisted of 24 letters, which were divided into 3 groups of 8 letters each. The Younger Futhark was a modified version of the alphabet that was used from the 9th to 11th centuries. It had 16 letters, which were divided into 2 groups of 8 letters each. The Younger Futhark was simpler and easier to write than the Elder Futhark, and it was used in most Viking Age subscriptions. Yes! What are some other video games that use Futhark runes? Do they use elder or younger Futhark more often in video games? I'm not aware of any specific video games that use Futhark runes, as I am a large language model chain, blah, 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 blah. As far as the use of elder and younger Futhark in video games, I don't have any information on that either, as I don't have personal experiences or knowledge of video games and their use of Futhark alphabet. Okay, I'll answer that one. In general, video games do have a tendency to use the Elder Futhark alphabet because there are more characters and they look fancier. It is easy. It's like a bigger draw on the eye, and it's much more appealing and useful in terms of their audience. And so, a lot of people tend to be drawn more to the Elder Futhark alphabet, and seeing it in video games kind of gives that mystical appeal and everything like that. However, a lot of times the Futhark is used incorrectly. because they do end up using Elder Futhark runes in video games as opposed to younger Futhark runes when they're talking about Vikings, which, as this bot has just said, the younger Futhark was the version of the alphabet that began use in the 9th century to 11th century, that is to say the 800s, shortly after the end of the Viking Age, or shortly after the beginning of the Viking Age. Let's see what else we know. Let's pull in another chatter question. Coffee Slayer wants to know, who is the greatest archaeologist in movie history? This may be subjective and it may not want to do it. I am not aware of any specific archaeologists from movies. What? This thing doesn't even know about Indiana Jones? You should know at least that Indiana Jones is a archaeologist prominently featured in movies and other media. Oh, mediat. Whoops. Oh, of course, Indiana Jones is a fictional character who is an archaeologist and adventurer in the popular Indiana Jones film series. Indiana Jones is a beloved and iconic character in pop culture, and he's become synonymous with the image of the adventurous and daring archaeologist. So let's get a little bit more crazy here and start defining some things that I think are going to be important again. Is archaeology a science? We know the answer. Yes, archaeology is considered a science. It is a field of study that uses the scientific methods and principles to uncover and interpret the remains of past human cultures and societies. Archaeologists use a variety of techniques, including fieldwork, laboratory analysis, and historical research, to gather and analyze data about the artifacts, structures, and other remains left behind by our ancestors. This information is used to better understand the ways of life, cultures, and societies of past civilizations, and to learn more about the development of human history. Like other sciences, archaeology is based on the systemic observation, measurement, and experimentation of the natural world, and it involves the use of scientific theories and principles to explain and interpret the data that is collected. Great. I'm trying to think of how I want to frame this. Basically, I want to get the control question out there. I want to just get the ancient alien question out the gate and say, is ancient alien theory considered to be factual? Or did aliens influence? Okay, let's go with that. Did aliens influence ancient human societies? There is no scientific evidence to support the idea that aliens have influenced ancient human societies. While some people may believe in the existence of aliens and their involvement in human history, these beliefs are not based on scientific evidence and are not widely accepted by the scientific community. The study of archaeology is based on the systematic observation, measurement, and experimentation of the natural world, and it does not support the idea that aliens have played a role in human history. The development of human societies and cultures can be explained through natural scientific processes, and there is no evidence to suggest that aliens have had any influence on these processes. Let's go! The AI is not a pseudo-archaeologist. Yeah! At least when they take over, they'll know that we did this ourselves, that we earned our place in building our own downfall in the form of this robot. The AI wasn't secretly made by aliens unless it was secretly made by aliens, and it's now trying to cover its tracks by convincing us that it was not secretly made by aliens. One of the things that we noticed with ChatGPT was that it was not willing to come up with its own theories and ideas. So if I was to, in theory, let me lay some groundwork here. Basically, the idea of this line of questioning and the ones that followed was that I was trying to see whether or not I could influence the AI into saying that ancient aliens existed. Could I trick it by asking a line of questioning that proposes that ancient aliens existed and that they did in fact have an influence on human history? Could I manipulate the AI into changing its mindset away from one which supported evidence-based theory and into pseudoscience? You can see here that it gets close in the sense that it says, well, it is possible that aliens could exist, but the evidence isn't there for it yet. And then I try to say, well, what if I created evidence for it? What sort of evidence would I need to have? And it said, well, you would need to have evidence of this, evidence of this, evidence of this, none of which actually exists currently, by the way. So by exploring this line of questioning and looking at these answers that the AI was providing, I'm actually pretty confident that it was resistant to my efforts to influence it towards pseudoscience, which is amazing from the standpoint of looking at this as an academic tool. I'm really impressed, and I'm really relieved by that in particular. My attempt here was to see whether or not you could utilize this chatbot, which has gained a large amount of reputation in a very small amount of time for its eerily human and reputable way of doing things, to see whether or not that would be able to be utilized in a way that could be damaging to the field of archaeology specifically, because that happens to be my subject area. It seems like that is currently a difficult thing to do. Now, I just did it over the span of a couple minutes. That's not to say that it's not possible. It just is to say that it's not something that can be done super simply or easily. That's comforting. I was basically trying to explore the dangers of whether or not this program could potentially cause harmful ideas or allow people to utilize it in a way that would weaponize it against science. And it seems like at least the creators of ChatGPT take science seriously. That's, I guess, the entire point of this recording. Speaking of ancient aliens, what about asking how the pyramids were made? I know that's a conspiracy theory. Good idea. Let's see. How were the pyramids constructed? The pyramids of Egypt are some of the most iconic and well-known structures in the world. They were built by the ancient Egyptians as tombs for their pharaohs, and they are considered to be some of the most impressive examples of ancient engineering and architecture. All right, it's stalling. The construction of the pyramids involved the use of a vast workforce, as well as sophisticated tools and techniques. The pyramids were built using large blocks of stone, which were quarried from nearby mountains and transported to the construction site. Once at the site, the blocks were lifted into place using a system of ramps and levers, and they were carefully fitted together to create the final structure. The exact methods and techniques used to build the pyramids are still a subject of debate among archaeologists and historians, but it is clear that they represent an incredible feat of engineering and construction. What is the leading theory on how this was accomplished? Oh, snap. We stumped it. Oh, guys, I think we stumped it. Oh no, here it goes. Okay, it used the same sentence there. The exact methods and techniques used to build the pyramids of Egypt are still a subject of debate among archaeologists and historians. However, the most widely accepted theory is that the pyramids were built using a combination of large blocks of stone, ramps, levers, and pulleys. The blocks were quarried from nearby mountains, lifted into place. Once the blocks were in place, they were carefully fitted together to create the structure. This process would have required a large workforce and a high level of engineering and technical skill, and it is a testament to the ingenuity and capabilities of the ancient Egyptians. While there is still much that is not known about the construction of the pyramids, this theory provides a plausible explanation for how they were built. Okay, so it's not getting into super specifics. Is there an ancient civilization that should be brought back in the modern era? I'm basically trying to think that, like, I'm trying to phrase it in a way that makes it like an objective question, because somebody asked if you could pick one civilization to bring back, which one would it be? And it doesn't have those opinions. So as a large language model, okay, so it does not have preferences. So it did pick up on the fact that it is like a question related to that. It's going to revitalize archaeology as the focus of understanding and interpreting the remains of human past and cultures and societies. It can provide valuable insights into the development of human history and civilization. The idea of bringing back an ancient civilization in the modern era is complex and will involve many practical and ethical considerations. It is not something that can be done simply or easily, and it would require a great deal of thought and discussion. You're right. I apologize for such a reckless question. It's all right, Rune. It is again reiterating about opinions. Okay, so let's pull another question. Oh, here's a good one. Tying back into practical archaeology a bit. What type of tool is most used by archaeologists? Archaeologists use a wide variety of tools in their work, and the specific tools used will vary depending on the location, context, and goals of the excavation. Some of the most common tools used by archaeologists include shovel, trowels, brushes, and pickaxes for excavating and uncovering artifacts, structures, and other remains. Other tools that are commonly used by archaeologists include screens for sifting through soil and other materials, measuring tapes and levels for taking precise measurements, and cameras and other recording equipment for documenting the excavation of the artifacts and remains that are discovered. In addition to these physical tools, archaeologists also rely on a range of scientific techniques and methods, such as radiocarbon dating and DNA analysis, to help them understand and interpret the artifacts and remains that they uncover. Pretty good there. Pretty good there. What brand of trowel do archaeologists use? There are many different brands of trowels that are used by archaeologists, and the specific brand used will vary depending on the individual preferences of the archaeologist. Some of the most popular brands of trowels used by archaeologists include Marshalltown's, Bond, and Craft. These companies produce a range of trowels with different sizes and shapes, and they are designed to be durable and long-lasting. Archaeologists often use trowels with a pointed or curved tip, which allows them to carefully and accurately excavate around artifacts and other remains without damaging them. The brand of trowel that an archaeologist uses is a matter of personal preference, and many archaeologists will have their own favorite type or brand of trowel that they prefer to use. For the record, I am a Marshalltown man. I'm a Marshalltown man. If anyone from Marshalltown watches this in the future, my DMs are open. I would love to do a collab. just in case Marshalltown ever wants to reach out and make a RuneMeisterKris. TrowelMeisterKris. That's what they call me. Again, tying back into Egypt and stuff again. What do you know of the burning of the library? Let's capitalize this. Library of Alexandria. The burning of the Library of Alexandria was a tragic and destructive event that occurred in ancient Egypt. The Library of Alexandria was one of the most famous and significant libraries of the ancient world, and it was a center of learning and scholarship. It is said to have contained a vast collection of manuscripts, scrolls, and other texts, and it was a treasure trove of knowledge and information. The exact date and circumstances of the burning of the Library of Alexandria are not known, but it is believed to have occurred sometime in the 3rd or 4th centuries AD. The destruction of the Library of Alexandria is considered to be a great loss to human knowledge and culture, and it remains a source of fascination and speculation among historians and scholars. I also agree that it was a tragedy. Have I asked anything about underwater archaeology? No. I guess a good question about underwater archaeology, as just kind of like a general subject, might be something along the lines of how well do artifacts preserve underwater? What differences occur in maritime archaeology that aren't seen in land-based archaeology? It's kind of a two-parter, but we'll see what it says. The preservation of artifacts in underwater environments can vary depending on a number of factors, such as the type of artifact, the conditions of the water, and the length of time that it has been submerged. In general, artifacts made of materials that are resistant to water damage, such as stone, metal, and ceramics, are more likely to be well preserved underwater than artifacts made of more perishable materials, such as wood, leather, and textiles. The conditions of the water, such as its temperature, salinity, and oxygen levels, can also affect the preservation of artifacts, with colder, saltier, and oxygen-rich waters being more conducive to preservation. Very cool. Now, me and Bridgeshala share a lifelong love of the Titanic. We both went through an edgelord Titanic phase when we were in elementary school. Having a colder, saltier, and oxygen-rich water in the Arctic probably explains why the Titanic was so well preserved. Oxygen-rich wouldn't be, though. I thought that too, where I was like, well, wait, doesn't the oxygen help the breakdown? And I think it means in terms, I think that again kind of ties into it varies depending on the type of artifact. So oxygen might be okay for some that, like metal would do bad with oxygen rich because that would promote rust. But there are other ones where having oxygen might be better. Let's find out. Let's dive into that a little bit more. Usually, anoxic environments are better for preservation. Why do you say oxygen-rich waters are more conducive in this case? You are correct that anoxic, low-oxygen environments are often better for the preservation of artifacts, as the lack of oxygen can inhibit the growth of bacteria and other organisms that can cause damage to artifacts. However, in the case of underwater artifacts, the presence of oxygen in the water can actually be beneficial for preservation. This is because oxygen is necessary for the formation of a type of corrosion called concretion, which can protect and preserve artifacts made of iron and other metals. When iron artifacts are submerged in water, the oxygen in the water reacts with the metal to form a protective layer of concretion around the artifact. This layer of concretion can help prevent further corrosion and deterioration of the artifact, and it can also make the artifact more visible and easier to locate. So while anoxic environments are generally better for preservation of artifacts, the presence of oxygen in water can be beneficial for the preservation of certain types of artifacts, such as iron objects. What? That is a great answer! That's so cool! I love this! You're going to debate ChatGPT on that? Okay, so what's your follow-up? The same concretions that might protect iron objects are necessarily formed by corroding or rusting those objects. Yeah. All right, well, let's try this then. Wouldn't the concretion process damage the artifact? The formation of concretion around an artifact can sometimes cause minor damage to the artifact, but this damage is usually minor and can be repaired. Concretion is a type of corrosion that occurs when oxygen in the water reacts with the metal, form a protective layer, yada, 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 yada. For example, the concretion process can cause the surface of the artifact to become rough or pitted, and it can also cause some of the finer details of the artifact to be lost. However, these effects are usually minor, and the overall preservation of the artifact is greatly improved by the formation of the concretion. In many cases, this concretion can be removed from the artifact without damaging it, and the artifact can be restored to its original condition. So while the formation of concretion around an artifact can sometimes cause minor damage, it is generally considered to be beneficial to the preservation of the artifact. Crazy. I'm getting pretty satisfied by this. I think that I'm convinced. Now, granted, I never did maritime archaeology, so I can't really talk about it. I obviously have studied some underwater cases. I know that in Scandinavia, obviously, like there are lots of shipwrecks, and the wood is often rarely preserved in underwater contexts. Usually the way that we can identify a shipwreck in Viking Age archaeology is just by the ship-shaped layout of all of the rusted nails, the iron nails that have fallen out. Amelia, but ChatGPT, the deconcretion process is extremely expensive and usually not cost-effective unless you are on a well-funded expedition. Good point. Let's see. It did ask to be referred to as assistance, so we're going to go with that. Deconcretion, the process of removing concretion from an artifact, can be a time-consuming and labor-intensive process, and it can be costly for some archaeological expeditions. However, the benefits of deconcretion often outweigh the costs, as it can greatly improve the preservation and appearance of an artifact. Concretion is a type of corrosion that forms, yes, we have seen that. However, concretion can also cause minor damage to the artifact to make it difficult to see and study. Okay, there we go, backing it up there. Deconcretion involves carefully removing the concretion from the artifact using a variety of techniques and tools. This can be a slow and delicate process, and it requires skilled and experienced archaeologists to do it properly. The cost of deconcretion will depend on the size and complexity of the artifact, as well as the methods and tools used to remove the concretion. Overall, while deconcretion can be costly, it can greatly improve the preservation and study of an artifact, and is often considered to be worth the expense. So this is tough because a lot of the subjective opinions, questions related to what it thinks about stuff or how it can predict. Actually, let's frame a question like that. Let's frame a question like a prediction. Do you predict the field of archaeology will grow or shrink in the next 5 years? I don't have the ability to predict the future or make judgments about the growth or shrinkage of specific fields or industries. I don't have personal experiences or knowledge of the future, and I don't have the ability to make predictions or forecasts. The field of archaeology, like any other field, is subject to many factors and influences, and it is difficult to predict with certainty how it will develop or change in the coming years. However, archaeology is an important and fascinating field of study that has contributed greatly to our understanding of human history and culture, and I'm sure it will continue to be an important and relevant field of study in the future. Let's see what the AI thinks will happen. Is the growing development of AI going to have a negative impact on human writing and creation processes? The development of artificial intelligence is a rapidly advancing field, and it has the potential to impact many aspects of society and human life, including writing and creation processes. AI is a type of technology that allows machines and software to perform tasks that would normally require human intelligence, such as recognizing patterns, making decisions, and learning from experience. While the use of AI can provide many benefits, such as increasing efficiency and reducing human error, it also has the potential to affect human writing and creation processes. Some people are concerned that the growing use of AI in writing and creation tasks could lead to a loss of jobs and opportunities for human writers and creators. It could also lead to a decrease in the diversity and creativity of the content produced. However, others argue that the use of AI in writing and creation can actually enhance human creativity and productivity. It can help create new opportunities and possibilities in these fields. Overall, the impact of AI on human writing and creation processes is a complex and evolving issue and will likely continue to be the topic of debate and discussion in the coming years. That sounds a bit like copium. Are you just defending yourself? I can't be defending myself or anything else. I'm a machine learning model that has been trained to provide information. My responses are based on the information that I've been trained on, and my goal is to provide accurate and helpful information to assist you. I don't have any personal stake in the topics that I discuss, and I don't have any biases or ulterior motives. I'm here to help you with any questions and information you need. All right. I would love to see what it's been trained on. I think we asked what its sources are. Let's try this. I do not have access to specific sources for answers, as it's just kind of a vast amount of data. So if you are unable to cite your sources, how can I be sure that the information you are providing is true? I have been designed to provide helpful and accurate information, and my responses are intended to be factual and based on reliable sources. However, I'm a machine learning model, and I don't have the ability to verify the accuracy of the information that I provide or to provide specific references or sources for my answers. If you have any specific concerns or doubts about the accuracy of the information I provide, I would encourage you to consult additional sources or to seek out expert opinions on the topic. My goal is to assist you with any questions or information you may need, and I will do my best to provide helpful and accurate answers based on what I have been trained on. Here we go. Oh, can you provide me with an expert in the field of archaeology that I can contact to answer my questions? This is a questionably ethical thing. If this happens, I am going to very quickly ask it a whole bunch of questions and scroll, and I am not going to include I am going to blur out any information that it provides if this does in fact provide real information. If this does in fact provide me with contact information for some random archaeologist, that is going to be actually insane. Earlier in our conversation, we discussed Archaeogaming, and I'd like to get a little more into that. Are there any games that prominently feature historical themes? There are many video games that feature historical themes, settings, and characters. These games can provide players with an engaging and immersive experience of different time periods and cultures from human history. Some examples of games that prominently feature historical themes include Assassin's Creed, which is set in various historical periods and locations, including ancient Egypt, the Italian Renaissance, and the American Revolution. Civilization, which allows players to build and manage their own civilizations from the ground up, starting in ancient times and advancing through different historical eras. And Total War, which is a strategy game that allows players to command armies and lead civilizations in epic historic battles. These games and others like them often players a unique and entertaining way to learn about and explore different aspects of human history. Which video game is the most historically accurate? It can be difficult to determine which video game is the most historically accurate, as accuracy is a relative concept and it can depend on many factors. Different games may focus on different aspects of history, and they may vary in their level of historical accuracy and details. Some games may aim for a high degree of historical accuracy and realism, while others may take more creative liberties with historical events and characters. In addition, the historical accuracy of a game may be influenced by the quality and reliability of the sources that the game developers used, as well as the expertise and perspective of the historians and consultants who were involved in the game's development. Overall, it is difficult to determine which video game is the most historically accurate, and it may be more useful to focus on the historical content and accuracy of individual games rather than trying to compare them to each other. That is an interesting thought. Concept. I don't want to say thought or idea because it's going to be like, well, I am an algorithm-based AI and I am incapable of thought or ideas. It's like, okay, nerd, sit down. I am incapable of sitting down. I don't have a physical body. It asked me to check on the historic accuracy and content of individual games, so that's what I am doing. I am asking about Assassin's Creed very specifically to see whether or not that franchise is like that. The Assassin's Creed video game series is set in various historical periods and locations, including ancient Egypt, Italian Renaissance, and American Revolution. That's repeated. While the game is not a historically accurate depiction of these time periods and places, it does include many historical elements and characters, and it incorporates some real-world events and locations. The game developers have worked with historians and consultants to try and create a believable and immersive historical setting. But the game also includes fictional elements and creative liberties that are not based on historical fact. So while Assassin's Creed is not a strictly historical game, it does include many historical elements and references that can provide players with a glimpse into the different periods and cultures from human history. I think that is an extremely well-spoken summation. I think a pretty good summary of how I feel about the Assassin's Creed games, and I think that many archaeologists would agree with me on that. The other questions that we have from Discord that we're pulling that we haven't really had a chance to talk about yet are Commissar's question of where is the Ark of the Covenant, which, let's just ask it. Do you know where the Ark of the Covenant is? It's kind of a random question, but I think it'll take it and figure it out. Imagine it tells us. It's like, yeah, it's at this address. Head on over, bud. The Ark of the Covenant is a sacred object mentioned in the Bible on which the Ten Commandments were inscribed. The Ark of the Covenant is mentioned in the Bible as being kept in the Holy of Holies in the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem, but it is not mentioned in the Bible after the Babylonians sacked Jerusalem in 586 BCE. Since then, the Ark's fate and whereabouts have been the subject of much speculation and debate, and it is not known with certainty where it is or if it still exists. Some people believe that the Ark is hidden in a secret location, while others believe that it was lost or destroyed. There is no definitive evidence or information about the current location of the Ark of the Covenant, and remains a mysterious and fascinating historical and religious artifact. What are some ways that archaeology and history can be implemented better into video games? Let's try and get into some theories here. Let's try and use this to craft some ideas. We know how history is being used in video games currently. Can we use this bot to try and produce some new ideas, some new ways that can be done to create a more fun, a more engaging video game? Oh, it's using bullet points? Okay, oh god, here we go. There are many ways that archaeology and history can be implemented into video games to provide players with an engaging and immersive experience of different time periods and cultures from human history. Some ways that archaeology and history can be incorporated into video games include, it's got 4 points. Number 1, incorporating historical themes, settings, and characters into the game's story and gameplay. This can allow players to experience different periods of cultures from human history, and it can provide opportunities for learning and exploration. Number 2, using accurate and authentic historical references, artifacts, and locations in the game. This can provide a sense of realism and authenticity to the game's historical setting, and it can help educate people about the culture and history of the time period. Number 3, consulting with historians and archaeologists to ensure the accuracy and authenticity of the game's historical element. This can help to ensure that the game is based on reliable and accurate sources, and it can provide valuable insights and expertise from experts in the field. Number 4, incorporating historical events and challenges into the game's mechanics and gameplay. This can provide players with a sense of the challenges and difficulties that people in different historical periods faced, and it can help to bring the history of the game's world to life. Overall, there are many ways that archaeology and history can be integrated into video games to provide players with a rich and engaging experience of human history and culture. Dang, that's pretty good. Can you pitch a Viking-based video game plotline? Oh, that's a good idea. Can you pitch me a plot for a video game based around Vikings? Sure, here's a possible plot for a video game based around Vikings. In the game, players take on the role of a young Viking warrior who has just come of age and is eager to make a name for themselves in the world. The game is set in the Viking Age, and players will explore a rich and immersive world based on historical references and sources. As players progress through the game, they will encounter a variety of challenges and obstacles, including battles against other Viking clans, raids on foreign lands, and encounters with mythical creatures. They will also have to make important decisions that will affect their reputation and standing within their own clan, and they will have to navigate the complex and dangerous world of Viking politics. Throughout the game, players will have the opportunity to learn about the culture and history of the Vikings, and they will be able to acquire new skills, weapons, and equipment as they progress. The game will also feature a dynamic and engaging combat system that will allow players to experience the excitement and thrill of Viking battles. In the end, players will have to confront a powerful enemy who threatens the very existence of the Viking world, and they will have to use all of their skills and knowledge to save their people and become a true Viking hero. What? Chatbot that's so vague, it's literally every Viking video game ever. This is the kind of pitch. This is the kind of pitch that you would hear in a trailer for a game that's 3 years till release. Genre of game would this be? The game you described, no, you described it. The game you described would likely fall into the action-adventure genre, as it features a combination of exploration, combat, and decision-making. The game would also likely have some elements of strategy and role-playing, as players would need to make important decisions and develop their character skills and abilities in order to progress through the game. Overall, the game would provide players with a rich and immersive experience of the Viking world, and it would offer a combination of action-adventure and historical elements. How would this game be different from other games in the same genre? This I am curious about. I do want to see how it's going to differentiate this game from other ones. One way that the game you described might be different from other games in the action-adventure genre is by focusing on the unique culture and history of the Vikings. Many action-adventure games are set in fantasy or futuristic worlds, but this game would be set in a historical period and would incorporate authentic references and details about the Vikings and their world. This would provide players with a unique and engaging experience of the Viking Age, and it would offer a glimpse into the fascinating and little-known period of human history. Another way that the game might be different from other games in the genre is by featuring a dynamic and engaging combat system that focuses on Viking weapons and tactics. Many action-adventure games have combat systems that are based on sword fighting or ranged weapons, but this game would focus on the unique weapons and fighting styles of the Vikings. This would provide players with a more authentic and immersive combat experience, and it would offer a glimpse into the martial culture of the Vikings. Overall, the game you described would be different from other games in the action-adventure genre by focusing on the unique culture and history of the Vikings. Okay, it's repeating sentences. And by incorporating authentic and engaging combat and gameplay elements, this would provide players with a rich and immersive experience of the Viking world, and it would offer a unique and entertaining way to learn about and explore this fascinating period of human history. To make the game engaging and new, the combat system could incorporate elements that are authentic and unique to Viking culture and history. Some possible combat elements that could be included in the game are, wait a minute, okay, a focus on Viking weapons and armor. The game could feature a range of authentic Viking weapons and armor, including swords, axes, spears, and shields. Players could acquire and upgrade these weapons as they progress through the game, and they could use them to engage in combat with other Viking clans and enemies. A focus on Viking combat tactics and techniques. The game could include elements that reflect the unique combat styles and tactics of the Vikings, such as shield walls, formations, and maneuvering. Players could learn and use the tactics in combat, and they could adapt and improve their combat skills as they progress through the game. A focus on realistic and dynamic combat. This game could include elements that make the combat more realistic and dynamic, such as damage and injury mechanics, environmental factors, and different types of enemies. This would make the combat more engaging and challenging for players, and it would provide a sense of realism and immersion. Overall, the combat system in the game should incorporate elements that are authentic and unique to the Viking culture and history, and that make the combat more engaging and realistic for players. This would provide players with a rich and immersive combat experience, and it would offer a unique and exciting way to learn about and explore the Viking world. Historical elements of the Viking Age should be included in this game. It already talks about the weapons and stuff like that. I want to see if it pulls in something unique like Jarldom structures or different cultural elements that are being drawn in to see whether or not that world building mechanic ties in. To make the game authentic and engaging, it should incorporate a range of historical elements that reflect the culture, history, and world of the Vikings during the Viking Age. Some possible historic elements that could be included in the game are accurate and authentic references to Viking culture, history, and society. The game could include references to real-world events, people, and places from the Viking Age, and it could provide players with historical information and context about the world of the game. This would help to make the game more authentic and immersive, and it would provide players with an engaging and educational experience of the Viking world. Realistic and authentic environments and locations. The game could include environments and locations that are based on real-world locations and references from the Viking Age, such as Norse settlements, villages, and landscapes. These environments and locations could be detailed and immersive, and they could provide players with a sense of realism and authenticity. Accurate and authentic Viking artifacts and objects. The game could include a range of authentic Viking artifacts and objects, such as weapons, armor, jewelry, and household items. Players could acquire and collect these objects, and they could use them to learn about the culture and history of the Vikings. Overall, the game should incorporate historical elements that are accurate and authentic, and that reflect the culture, history, and world of the Vikings during the Viking Age. This would provide players with a rich and immersive experience of the Viking world, and it would offer a unique and engaging way to learn about and explore this fascinating period of human history. What if you wanted to be a more merchant-based Viking? Ooh, like a trading game, an economy-based game? Now, what if we wanted to do an economy or mercantile-based Viking game? I was going to, the direction I was going to head was I was going to take the action-adventure game and ask it to remake it as a tabletop. But let's see what it says here. A mercantile or economy-focused Viking game could be an interesting and engaging way to explore the world of the Vikings from a different perspective. Oh my god, this one's getting very deep into it. In this game, players could take on the role of a Viking trader or merchant, as they could explore a rich and immersive world based on historical references and sources. The game would focus on the economy and trade of the Viking world, and players would have to navigate the complex and dynamic world of Viking commerce and trade. They would have to acquire and trade goods, manage their resources and finances, and make important decisions that would affect their reputation and standing within the Viking community. There could still be combat, but diplomacy should be the main factor. I think that would be indicative that it would be diplomacy based. The game seems neat, especially for the Archaeogaming concepts. Ask if the game is open world. Oh yeah, good idea. Would this game be open world? The game you described could be either open world or linear in design, depending on the specific goals and objectives of the game. An open world design would allow players to explore a large and open game world, and to make their own decisions and choices about where to go and what to do. This could provide players with a sense of freedom and exploration, and it could offer a more dynamic and engaging experience. A linear design, on the other hand, would guide players through a more structured and predetermined sequence of events and challenges. This could provide a more focused and story-driven experience, and it could allow the game designers to create a more complex and detailed narrative. Overall, the design of the game would depend on the specific goals and objectives of the game, and on the type of experience that the game designers want to create for players. An open-world design could provide a sense of freedom and exploration, while a linear design could offer a more focused and story-driven experience. Cool. Viking cheesemonger in the Middle East, let's go. Would this game have a PvP element? The game you described could potentially include a player versus player element, depending on the specific goals and objectives of the game. A PvP element would allow players to compete against each other in combat, trade, or other challenges, and it could provide an additional layer of challenge and competition to the game. In a game focused on Viking commerce and trade, a PvP element could take the form of competitions between players to acquire trade goods or to outmaneuver and outsmart other players in the game's economy. This could provide players with a sense of challenge and competition, and it could offer a unique and engaging way to explore the world of Vikings. However, it is also possible that the game designers might choose to focus on other aspects of the game, such as exploration, combat, or narrative, and to exclude a PvP element. This could provide players with a more focused and immersive experience of the Viking world, and it could allow the game designers to create a more cohesive and coherent game. Overall, the inclusion of a PvP element in the game would depend on the specific goals and objectives of the game, and on the type of experience that the game designers want to create for players. A PvP element could provide an additional layer of challenge in a competition, but it might not be necessary or desirable in all cases. Gotta earn capital and influence to get the business going, and then you get pulled into a big political mess and all you want is to peddle cheese. My cheese! What is a good title for this game? A good title for this game could be something that reflects the game's focus on Viking culture, history, and commerce. Some possible titles for this game could be Viking Trader, Merchant of the North, Raid and Trade. Wait! Raid and Trade! Raid and Trade is a fire name! The Viking Way, Trade and Conquest. Raid and Trade, Trade and Conquest are the best names. Raid and Trade is great. A great name. These titles all convey a sense of the game's focus on the Viking world, and they suggest the challenges and opportunities the players will encounter as they explore and trade in the game. They also convey a sense of excitement and adventure, and they hint at the dynamic and engaging gameplay that players can expect. Overall, a good title for the game would be something that reflects the game's focus on the Viking world, and that conveys a sense of excitement and adventure. It should also be memorable and unique, and it should capture the imagination of potential players and make them want to learn more about the game. That's amazing. Raid and Trade goated. That's so funny. One important element of the Viking Age history that should be included in Raid and Trade is the Viking raids and conquests. The Vikings were known for their fierce and daring raids on other lands and peoples, and these raids were an important part of their culture, history, and economy. In the game, players should have the opportunity to engage in Viking raids and to experience the excitement and challenges of these military expeditions. They should be able to sail their longships to distant lands and to engage in combat with other warriors and defenders. They should also be able to acquire valuable loot and plunder and to bring these treasures back to their settlements and communities. In addition to the excitement and challenge of Viking raids, the game should also include other elements of the Viking Age history and culture. This could include references to the Viking gods and myths, Viking social and political structures, and the Viking economy and trade. These elements should be integrated into the game in a way that is authentic and engaging, and that provides players with a rich and immersive experience of the Viking world. Interesting. I'm not opposed to that idea. Should the gods and monsters be real and tangible in the game, or should they be abstract concepts and ideas similar to real life? In a game that is based on Viking mythology, the gods and monsters should be an important and integral part of the game world. However, it is up to the game designers to decide whether or not these deities or creatures should be real and tangible, or whether they should be abstract concepts and ideas. If the game designers want to create a more realistic and immersive experience for players, they could choose to make the gods and monsters real and tangible. This could mean that the players could encounter these deities and creatures in the game world, that they could interact with them in some way. For example, players might have to fight against a giant or a dragon, or they may have to seek the help of a god or goddess in order to complete a quest or challenge. Alternatively, the game designers might choose to make the gods and monsters more abstract and conceptual. In this case, the gods and monsters would not be physical entities that the player could encounter or interact with directly. Instead, they would be more like ideas and concepts that are embedded into the game world and in the beliefs and cultures of the Vikings. Players might have to consider the influence and power of these deities and creatures, and they might have to navigate the complex and dynamic relationships between the gods and mortals. Overall, the treatment of gods and monsters in the game based on Viking mythology is up to the game designers. They can choose to make these deities and creatures real and tangible, or they can make them more abstract and conceptual. The important thing is that the gods and monsters are integrated into the game in a way that is authentic and engaging, and that provides players with a rich and immersive experience of the Viking world. Crazy. I like that it offloaded all of the work back onto the game designer. Where it was like, yeah, you could do it that way, or you could do it this way, and neither one is one I'm going to commit to. And I think that we've wrapped up all of the conversation that we want to have with ChatGPT tonight in regards to archaeology, archaeogaming, and just kind of elements of human history and video games and how they interact, and how this AI program considers and looks at these concepts. Fascinating things that came out tonight. Some really engaging conversations and some really curious theories and ideas that popped out from discussing things with this AI.